Well, second speaker from Colorado, Jesse, is going to talk about Cypress and visual testing. Please let me welcome you.
This is news to me. Excellent. Here we go. Thanks everybody for coming out. It's great to be here. Just flew in today from Denver, Colorado. Had a beautiful day cycling around on a jump cycle, cruising all over the city, so it was absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is Cypress visual testing. Who's doing visual testing now? A couple of people. Oh, great. More than what I thought. Excellent. So a little bit about myself. My name is Jesse Sanders. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Brebug. We're out of Denver, Colorado. We're an Angular consultancy. That's my email address and my Twitter account. You can email me or DM me. I will respond. So what's visual testing? This is something new. This is not something that not a lot of people are doing, not a lot of companies are doing, but it's something that we really should be thinking about and taking advantage of. So what I want you to think about is that it's really about detecting and viewing visual changes. So right now, how do you track visual changes in your applications? How are you doing testing right now? And most people are doing a large share of, let's say, unit tests, maybe some integration tests, and then a smaller percentage of us are doing any sort of end-to-end. Who's actively doing end-to-end right now? Who likes end-to-end? All right, we got one, maybe, all right. So if you haven't checked out Cypress yet, I think Cypress might change your mind about how to do end-to-end and why it actually is a great tool and breaks away from the traditional paradigms of something like a Selenium-based test tool, which, by the way, was written in 2004, and I think the web has changed just a little bit since then. At least my memory says so. All right, so visual testing traditionally has just been a manual comparison process. So we have a QA team that's actually trying to visually compare what's going on between the last version. And usually what they're doing is they're pulling up in stage what's currently up there, and they're then comparing it to what's in test. And they're trying to visually compare between two screens and figure out what has changed. What has this developer done to this application? What's going on here, right? So visual bugs are hard to catch. What about color variations? Who's colorblind? Anybody colorblind in the room? No, I'm the only one? Come on, really? Okay. I'm colorblind, not horribly colorblind, but enough where small color changes, they don't jump out at me. I don't see those. And so those are very difficult for people to catch. So we run unit tests, integration tests, end tests to find issues, but why are we looking at things to do visual? I think the biggest reason with that is because we really haven't had the tools available to us to do this. There have been some tools out there, but they've been very, very expensive. They're really not in the reach of most developers, and a very specialized sort of tool set. So what's the premise behind visual testing? It's really pretty simple. It comes down to three basic things. Really two, and with a slight bend to it, which is one, we get a base image. What is the expected standard of what we expect the image to be? And then when we run the current test, we want to then compare what the current image is compared to the base image, and then help me see the differences. Help me do that comparison. And with that, we need some sort of variance, some sort of tolerance. There's going to be some minor changes that we're like, hey, that's okay. We don't really care about, like a 2% or a 5% or maybe even a 40% deviance. But we can't have it over a certain threshold. Right. So what problem does this actually solve? The biggest thing here is visual change control. Having some way to actually visually record what was it before, what is it now, and what's the difference between those two. And then what we want to do here is we want to be able to test and validate complex user interfaces. Well, what does that mean to you? Is it hello world? Probably not. But it's probably more things like graphs. How would you test a graph and make sure that it visually represented what it used to represent? And it's actually displaying the same exact way for our users. Dashboards, layouts, images, all these sorts of things are difficult and require somebody currently to do a visual inspection and try to get me some feedback on, hey, this has changed, we need you to correct this. So really I think the bottom line is that developers change stuff, sometimes purposely, sometimes just accidentally. We make a change we didn't really intend to make. We might be making a change to some CSS to actually purposely fix one area, but then accidentally break like 5 others. This is one way that we can really prevent those sorts of issues. So what tools are available? there's several tools out there. We're going to talk about two. Both of them are based on Cypress. One is the Cypress Visual Regression Tool, and another one's called Percy.io. Has anybody worked with Percy yet? Awesome. So Percy, we'll actually dig into a little deeper and get a little deeper understanding there. But I want to show you kind of like, hey, what's the bare bones, and what's the oh my God, this is amazing. Okay. So who knows what kind of card that is down there in the computer screen? Anybody? That is a Yugo. Okay, I love Yugos because it's a really great way of explaining. A Yugo will get you to where you want to go. You just might not go in style, but it will get you there. It will get you there. Hey, Brian was talking on the airplane about how Yugo was proposing cardboard doors to save money. Safety third. So what this is this is actually a plugin for Cypress. It actually uses a library called Pixel Match. It makes it really easy to be able to capture a base image and then be able to run additional tests to compare to the baseline. It'll fail the tests if the images are different. And it is the Yugo for visual testing. This means you're going to do all the work. Okay, you're the one that's actually going to have to figure out what's acceptable and what's not. A little bit more of a manual process, but what's nice about this is it's 100% free no matter how many images you need to capture, as long as we have drive space for it. So how do we install it? It's really simple, standard npm install, save it to our dev dependencies. Then we got a couple of things to configure here. So we're going to go into the Cypress JSON, and we need to set a screenshot folder. We need to set, it's probably a good idea to trash the assets before each run so that we don't compare against old versions of stuff against our baseline. We need to configure the plugin, and then we need to add the command. So it's a whole bunch of little code there. Really doesn't mean a whole lot, but this is how we basically wire this up to get it to work. And then here's a test. This should look like what you're typically running right now already. Outside of, this is Cypress syntax. So where it says CY, that's Cypress, and we're first going to visit Amazon.com, and then we're going to call compare snapshot, and we can give it a name. It accepts a couple of parameters if we'd like, but there's really not a whole lot that we can do there. What it's going to do is it's going to execute whatever commands go up to that point where it gets to the compare snapshot, and then it is going to take a snapshot and it's going to compare it to the base. Great. So to be able to run this, we're going to use npx cypress run. We're going to set a couple of environmental variables. First time we go through, we're going to set and say the type is our base. So this is our first run through. We're going to collect base images that we're going to use then as our base for comparison. We're going to set a screenshot folder to tell it, hey, use the base folder, not the regular folders. And then for each subsequent test, where we want to test to make sure if anything's changed, we're going to set our type equal to actual. And that's going to go ahead and give us a result, which looks something like this. So now this is my beautiful copy and paste, cut images. So I'm an artist, just not a very good one. So if you notice that there's slight differences to stuff, yes, there are. But you can see little things like here is the woman standing, but there's the book, the Mueller report, and there's the crawdads, where the crawdads sing, and is that a quick crawdad? I don't know what that is, but you can see here, whatever in red, it's showing you what the differences are from the base image. So these were run in far enough time where everything is different. There's nothing that is actually showing up the same. So this makes it very quick and easy to be able to figure out what's changed, what's visually not there. So Amazon is a great one to show you changes, but it's not a great one in terms of what you're really going to be testing, because hopefully your applications aren't changing this drastically from page to page. But obviously their dashboard and what they're pulling in for content is. Great. So as you can see here, this is really the Yugo of testing. It will get you there. It will get you visual testing. You will be able to do some of these comparisons. And if you're looking for just a base starter point, this is a great entry-level vehicle for you. It will get you to where you want to go. Okay, but there's something better out there. So what I want to introduce you to is Percy.io. So Percy is a soup to nuts solution where the images are stored up on the cloud. It integrates directly into GitHub and can be part of your PR process. We'll take a look at some images at that towards the end here. It has an approval process flow. So as a developer, instead of having the developer go through and go, oh, yeah, that's fine, yep, that's fine, yep, that's fine, we can actually have a QA person go through and say, this is acceptable, this is not, and have a real flow to it. And then we can also have some auto approvals on specific branches like master that's completely configurable, so that we're like, okay, look, we don't want to approve things for production. At that point, when we get to that branch, we want to just auto approve it. It's totally good. Great. So the install process here is a quick npm install with Percy Cypress saved to our depth dependencies. And then the one thing that we have to do to configure is go to our support command.js file and import Percy Cypress. The reason I showed you the code for what you had to do for the other tool is notice how much more configuration there was. We had to do 3 different steps to get that set up. With Percy, it's just one quick step, that's it. Our syntax is really simple. Before we were doing Cypress compare snapshot, now we're just doing Cypress Percy snapshot. Nice and simple. And then to run Cypress with Percy, we just say npx Percy execute. We use the -- syntax to allow the next piece to just be a parameter for Percy, which says, hey, we're going to bring in Cypress run, and that's actually going to kick off. Percy will be responsible for kicking off Cypress for us. Great. Our test looks identical except for Percy snapshot versus compare snapshot. And our output looks really fairly similar, okay? The outputs really aren't all that much different. We have a little bit more control over what we can do with the outputs here, but they're actually pretty much the same. Here, we're actually going to step into the dashboard in just a second here, but this is directly from a PR request that allows us to say, okay, look, the CI service passed, everything in the CI went through, great, and then the visual review was approved by the master tester. So we can actually now have a QA person go through, take a look at all those comparisons. They don't have to, imagine right now if we ran the visual regression test tool up on the Circle CI. How is your QA person going to get in there and compare the images and make sure that they're actually valid? And that the changes that have occurred and the tests that have failed, that they're okay or not okay with those changes. So this actually gives us a really nice workflow to work with. So as you can see here, I look at Percy as being the Cadillac of test tools. So let's take a look at the dashboard here really quick. Actually back out, you can see, let me actually pull this up just a little bit. So what this shows me here is all the different runs that I was doing with Percy. What's interesting is don't run it on the airplane. The internet is not fast enough and it times out and it doesn't get snapshots. But outside of that, here I can go ahead and take a look at the runs that have occurred. You can see that I have one right now that's unreviewed. So we can come in here, take a look at the review, and I can see here's the base image, and then here is our current run. And we can see that, okay, look, we got some changes up here, so we'll probably need to look at those. And I can see a few of these items have changed, but for the most part, it's actually pretty much the same exact image. So that all looks good. I can also look at it in a mobile mode, what that would look like. And I can then, here we go. I can also then take all the diffs off, and I can actually see what the baseline versus what the current is, and I can see those without having the overlay on there. So that makes it really nice so that I can visually compare a lot easier. So again, this is a really nice tool for our QA or senior developers to be able to get in and visually see what's happened, what's changed, is this approved or not. I can also then compare between multiple browsers. So I can compare, right now it supports Chrome and Firefox, so I can do both of those. I can look between various sizes. I can also, one of the parameters I can pass in is what screen sizes do I want to capture. So that I can, if we have, we want to get mobile, tablets, portrait, tablet, landscape, and then regular browser, then we can capture all of those. So I can set that back on. Great, so that's really the dashboard, and if I want, I can either just say, hey, approve this one, or if there's a whole series of them, I can just come in here and say, yep, approve them all. Great. Now when I come back over here, I can see that it's approved. We don't have anything that's unapproved that we need to address. Once that happens, then that's gonna go ahead and approve that PR, and then I can go ahead and submit that, get that PR pushed up into my environment. So that all said, why am I passionate about this? I'm passionate about this because testing is super critical for us to deliver top-level applications, and we need tools that work. So visual testing is a great tool that works. I strongly recommend, if you haven't looked at Cypress IO yet, take a look at that. And by the way, I don't work for Cypress. I have nothing to do with Percy. I just learned about Percy in the last week or so. Most of this talk was really just going to be about the Cypress regression testing tool and nothing else. And when I got turned down to Percy, I was like, I got to bring this to you, and we're going to talk about it. So come find me. I got a really busy schedule. I'm going to IngyConf next week. I'm going to the International JavaScript Conference in London in the middle of May, then Angular up in June, and then we've got Angular Denver in the 1st of August. So it's going to be a busy summer. I'm super excited for all the events. Thank you, Leonardo, for having me. If you have any questions, I'll be on the panel later. For those of you who don't know, I'm an Angular GDE. Those, like I said, those are my actual contacts. If you want to reach out to me, happy to talk to you about this more. And thank you for having me.
And so we're going to have like 10 minutes of break, and after we're going to come back with the last two talk and the speaker panel.